Okay, welcome to a new chapter on Unit 15, Trade Strategies using TPO and Volume Profile Charts. So in this video, we're just gonna talk about the using previous session or sessions or even days key levels. So this is something I referenced when we were talking about the top-down analysis process that I use. I mentioned how there's many key levels that I always like to mark off on my charts and that I use when it comes to my daily analysis just to get ready for the next trading session. So those elements include last month's high, last month's low, last week high, last week low, yesterday high, yesterday low, then yesterday's or the previous session's value area high and value area low, the previous point of control, especially if this is a naked point of control that hasn't been intercepted yet. Same with the value areas. And then this is something I'm going to talk about in one of the next videos, which is keeping track of the futures market RTH closes. And I'm going to show you how this is a very strong strategy in order to trade the gaps present in the futures market between market hour sessions. Okay, so basically the process is you just go into a chart, look for these elements and mark them out, and we're going to see how those elements are going to have a big confluence most of the time when it comes to future price action. So here's, for example, in the gold market, I just zoomed out into a 4-hour chart and I marked off last month's and last week's levels. I didn't include this week just because I wanted to show how it interacted with the elements from the week before. But you can see here we're in the end of February. So this is the January high, last month's high. This is January low. And then right here, when we started off this week over here, this was the high from last week. This was the low from last week. So now you can see, if we zoom in on this region right here, there was a lot of significant interaction with this level. And we can see it right here. This is a 30-minute chart now. This was the high from last week. And you can see how this week that just closed, we opened up on Monday. And right here, pretty much, we barely missed it here. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we experienced some big resistance areas right around this last week's high. And then Friday, we finally had our breakout right here. But then this would have been a very important level just to track for our intraday trading. If we look at this is from a market profile perspective. And you can see right here, we had a nice excess at the top of this profile. And then we've had pretty much a good balance here on this 3 days, which we can make a composite of this. But then you see we did have a breakout and a close at higher values. So we did migrate from this region into the 2020s, and we're now into the 2030s. And if I bring up the chart, here's the same chart we were looking at. So again, we could merge this and make it big profile. And you can see how now we've had a confirmed close outside of our value area. And we are now trading above last week's high. If we go into a lower time frame, this is a 5-minute chart. We have the high right here. This is obviously a very impulsive data-driven move that we had here to the downside. But then you can see right over here, how we came on these sessions and the significance that this level has had in recent days. And then aside from those levels, then I'll always keep track of the previous session's main elements, which are going to be the high, the low, value area low, value area high, point of control. And if we just look forward into like the next session, is this is something that would be good for you to do like back testing. Just go back on your charts and observe. You can see, for example, here, value area high, marked off this top here before we had this significant pullback, before we did have the breakout over here as well. Naked point of control. Then finally we got it tested, but you can see how this whole area overall, the point of control and the value area low, was a very significant area of support, resistance, then turn support again. Okay, so it's just very important to track all these elements. If I go into a 5-minute chart here on the S&P 500, okay, and we go back. Always when you're dealing with futures, the regular trading hour profiles, the ones in gray, are going to be even more significant because they're based off of the stock market session, which always has more volumes, more of the other time frame institutional participants on. But you can see, for example, we had a very big edge here and a value area high, which capped the high for the evening, the extended trading hours sessions, for example. Here, continuing with the SP 500, for example, we have this bullish session right here, closing right after highs. We have our value area low, and then if we will extend this line, you can see this was a very important level when it came to this upside continuation. We did have, again, a false break below, pretty much right into the lows from this high volume node right here. Big support in these areas as well before we came, and then we continued respecting this level, not just into the extended trading hours, but even into the next day's session, which was a pretty balanced profile. But you can see how market held this level really well, and then it just continued in the upside. So just is very important just to keep track of these levels. You could even choose to just mark them off with a line. Like you can just take, for example, a horizontal ray or a horizontal line, mark it off. And then here you can add text to your drawings. Most platforms are going to allow you to do this. So then you can see, you can just put like yesterday, value area low, and now you're going to have all the labels. So that way you can identify and you know exactly what every level is, even if you're, further forward, especially if they're untested levels from somewhere in the past. Then you can have all these line extensions, and this is all going to help you to really map out all your charts in order to then be ready into the next trading session.